Rome.
And we're back again. Many apologies for, again, a second technical issue. We're pre-recording this now, so we'll move through the presentation and put this on afterwards. So this is a recording you're watching. Again, my name's Tom Cox. I'm the R&D manager for Habitat UK, based here in the British Gypsum headquarters at Eastleigh, just south of Nottingham. I've been working for the group now for 10 years, starting in Easever in 2007 in technical sales, moving through into marketing, product development, and on into innovation manager. And 2 years ago, joined the Habitat UK delegation area to start to look at research, link with the central functions of research in Paris and around the world, and work with UK brands to start looking at the development of systems and applications instead of just components, and moving on to looking at the multi-comfort concept and the full habitat environment, so whole building applications. I mentioned on the earlier broadcast which broke out that the competition which was run yesterday for e-learning vouchers is being run again today, so I'll set a question at the end, so keep an eye out. All the T's and C's are on the Facebook page, and we will be taking questions, but obviously not live. We'll be looking at those at the end of the broadcast and answering those through Facebook. So if we just take a walk through the head office and reception here, we'll walk through into the academy, which is a training area, which is an area which British Gypsum themselves have concentrated on heavily in terms of teaching contractors and installers how to install their products correctly. But it's also something we're looking at from a more global level to understand how we can enhance service offerings and packages for our customers to enable them to understand exactly how to install our products and why our products are installed in a certain way to get performances. So if we walk on through, I'll talk you through some of the applications as we go through. We see down the corridor some of the new launches British Gypsum are launching. So there's a 6-minute flat thistle bond, some of the skills side of things, so the World Skills that British Gypsum sponsored and the gentlemen they sent out to the World Skills final. Some aquabead applications, again new product and development, which from my perspective I really need to understand and integrate into the more global approach of habitat materials. Saint-Gobain materials within the habitat environment. Through here we have part of the academy. Behind us we have a lecture room. In there we can teach in a classroom environment and then move people from a classroom environment into a training environment where they have hands-on materials and understand exactly how things go together. We've got a small poster here, so there's a number down here of example projects of where we've approached a project with more than one material. So it's not a component-led application, it's more to do with combining multiple Saint-Gobain components into systems and creating buildings and ultimately environments. The Nottingham house was started in 2010, so it's a bit of a precursor to multi-comfort. It was designed to passive house levels and in the UK code level 6. And it is really a very high performing concept with a modular approach. So it was built with 8 preset modulars, completely finished on a volumetric application, and then bolted together on site to form a passive house. And those are no passive house. It's a very, very high building standard. So from my perspective and all the brands that were involved, it was a very hands-on process. It was designed by Nottingham University and actually built by the students. So a bit of a nightmare to try and coordinate that with the students. But it really was a very high performing building and built for a competition, an international competition, which that year was being held in Madrid, called the Solar Decathlon European competition. And it's a sustainability event looking to promote new build applications and new technologies in the built environment. And we were the only people there who had actually built a whole residential off-site modular building. And I think they were the winners of the sustainability category. But it was a very good sort of precursor to where we are today in Habitat 7 years ago. So again, move on through. This is the entrance to the training academy. As we can see, there's a lot of food out there, so we've got a big training course on today by the looks of it. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's an additional service that a number of brands have been offering for a long time, but at a Habitat level and a Saint-Gobain level, we're now looking to promote that sort of service, to understand on a more global scale in terms of construction how brands can work together to promote a solution, and how we need to engage with the end user to ensure those solutions are installed right to deliver as we design. So a very popular area, utilised quite a lot. And we can move through into a display area. In the display area, there's a number of examples of where we've worked together, brands have worked together to basically design solutions. The X-Rafter system here by Pascal is a set truss roof system. It's pre-insulated using E7 mineral wool. It's boarded using British gypsum applications, and obviously the Pascal involvement there with the timber application. So 3 brands working together to produce an off-site modular application for roofs in the residential environment. So a very good example of brands working collaboratively to produce a system and utilise, well, bring in a benefit to the end user ultimately. Again, it's not all working with only Saint-Gobain brands. We can see this party wall detail. This was something I was involved with back in 2009, development of acoustic solutions in residential scenarios, and this is a separating wall between dwellings in a residential environment. And by about 2011, this detail accounted for 2/3 of all separating walls built in the residential market. So a very successful detail, but working with the right partners. So a lot of my involvement is working with external partners as well as internal partners to understand how we develop a proposition which is useful to the end user and produces for the ultimate end user, in this case being the homeowner. As mentioned, this is a very high acoustic separating wall and accounted for an awful lot of applications back when the building market was booming. Again, we can walk around and see examples of where British Gypsum Systems historically as a company have majored on developing and producing a proven system. So we do get involved at the Habitat level of testing globally, so understanding fire reaction of complete buildings, acoustic reaction, daylighting, autonomy calculations. But back in the day, British Gypsum really led this sort of system approach. They have the White Book, and it's more as a precursor to where we really want to be at Habitat, to promote tested and verified dwellings, which British Gypsum have been doing a number of years within the petition market. There's also examples with other companies doing that. So we have Weber producing complete systems, not always with complete Saint-Gobain products, but as our portfolio of brands grow, we work with different brands to understand where potentially, say, a Celotex board may be used within a Weber system to produce a complete application, including the external products and the insulation product, and not using third-party products. So again, another one of my roles within the R&D side of things is communicating with brands, ensuring brands know where there is potential collaboration between them, and making that collaboration happen. So in here, it's just a general example of how our products and the extent of the products we have in Saint-Gobain UK and worldwide can be used together to produce effectively a complete environment. We know we can do that. We're absolute experts in producing components, understanding components down to the nth degree in terms of the component performance. The big learning curve for us coming through, and a big area for both Habitat UK plus SGR, the central research function, is understanding how those hard and fast measurements for components result in a system performance, in a whole building performance, and then the environment that building creates, how that environment is felt by humans. It's great to have hard data and hard measurements, but until we truly understand how that's translated by humans and how they feel that, we can't tailor for specific applications. So we're doing a lot of research at the moment. I think Richard mentioned yesterday Bartholomew's Barn, which is the first multi-comfort project in the UK. based around a school sports hall. Very diverse environment. It was used both for drama and sports. So it's sedentary activities as well as very active activities. And taking into account all of the principles behind multi-comfort design, we looked at daylighting autonomy, we looked at thermal consistency and symmetry within the design, so the level of the performance of the wall in terms of its U value, but also massive interest in the junction details between elements. So there's no point in developing an element that's super insulating with a junction into another element, which is very poor. And then all the other parameters, the acoustic properties, Ecofon got hugely involved in understanding how the acoustics in such a large vaulted space can be controlled and provide an environment which is suitable for sport. People quite like the echoey environment in sport, but when it comes to a drama perspective, they need a good environment for a speech intelligibility requirement as well as a reverberation time. So understanding how we can design that versatile space and comply with multi-comfort was quite a big project. We finished that last year. We're now into the monitoring stage, and we're roughly a year into that. The first 8 months produced over 30 million sets of data. With the second hall that we were monitoring, the existing hall, so we can compare the two environments, produced 60 odd million sets of data, which we're trawling through and looking at what that data set means in terms of performance and compliance with the multi-comfort standard. But we're also integrating a social science approach to understand exactly how that monitored data is translated and understood and felt by the users of the building. And that's at multiple levels. It's at primary school, so it's quite an interesting application, because we have maintenance departments, teaching staff who use the area, and of course children ranging from the age of 4 up to the age of 12. And obviously there's a big difference in how you question a 4-year-old child and a 12-year-old child. So we're designing different surveys to understand and get the message from all those different users of the building, understand exactly what a 4-year-old feels and how they feel the difference between the two, the old hall and the new hall is, and translate our hard sets of data into real feeling and how a user perceives the space and will use the space going forward. So it's a really interesting area. It's going to be a lot of activity for ourselves going forward in the central sort of habitat function to understand that global approach and the environment that we create, how we monitor that environment and create the best environment for the building user in whichever sector it's in. Obviously we're doing a lot of work at the moment on the education sector, but we're obviously focused on the commercial sector, so retail space, office space, the hospital sector, as well as the residential sector in various forms, so student accommodation, general low-rise and high-rise applications. And when we've understood how we exactly approach that, we have got sort of almost free rein in the development of systems and applications to meet and exceed the expectations of our end users. And of course that opens up a whole new market for us. We start to engage with customers, and we can actually work with customers to allow them to understand how a space can be changed using materials which generally they wouldn't see. A lot of the materials which create performance in applications are hidden behind walls and within walls, but enabling people to understand and experience it through development of virtual reality and different applications, the audible and visual side of things, is a huge benefit to a company such as Saint-Gobain, who has the breadth of brands and products to create buildings. So yeah, that's really where we are at the moment. My main activity, as I mentioned, is working with a lot of the central research functions and translating that into how we can use their activity and how we can use it in the UK. And key function at the moment is understanding how people perceive environments from our traditional hard data measurements, and proving that environments can be delivered in situ in terms of performance as they were designed on paper. A big area in the UK to be concentrating on, and an area the government is very focused on. So from our approach, we haven't actually got any questions at the moment, but if we continue on through, we can walk through into the Habitat office and we can look at some more of the functions based around multi-comfort and how we're globally looking to approach that function going forward from a holistic approach rather than just a material application approach. They get the bold spot. It's a little bit of a walk, not too much further, but it's down one of the corridors out the way. So now we're coming down into the delegation office in the UK. As you can see, it's quite focused around multi-comfort. So the posters on the way down the corridor detail the main application areas that we're looking at within multi-comfort. 4 main applications, so thermal comfort, audio comfort, so acoustic environments, visual comfort, massively focusing on daylighting and the use of natural light instead of artificial light, which we are in here. And then something that's top of the agenda for quite a lot of people, indoor air comfort. So not indoor air comfort, indoor air quality. There's a huge movement within the general public to start to understand health and applications, specifically in the UK. At the moment it's very focused on external air quality. In London, for instance, there's numerous news reports looking at how PM 2.5s, PM 10s emitted by diesel vehicles are very detrimental to health, and various other emissions from combustion engines are creating issues with air quality. There's a lot of focus on the outside environment, but that focus is starting to move to the internal environments, and the more and more capability people have to monitor their self-environment, the more people are getting interested in developing how that or improving their indoor environment. For instance, just to give an example, 90% of our time is spent in internal areas, and people are really starting to understand how that internal environment can affect you, and they're starting to look at or push environments or demand environments to live and work in which are healthy for them rather than detrimental for their health. So there's a lot of self-monitoring products out there within the group. With R&D, we are looking at self-monitoring applications. A number of you may have seen the MC350, which looks at the parameters within multi-comfort and allows you to understand one area to another. We can sit in a very poorly lit area, for instance, and measure the lux measurements of a light level in that area, and go to a well-lit area and understand the difference and feel the difference, to start to visualise and allow people to understand what all the figures and facts that we're talking about mean in terms of engagement with that environment. And as I mentioned, the general public are starting to get access to many self-monitoring devices, home monitoring devices, to understand exactly the thermal, audio, visual and air quality parameters in their living and working environment mean to them, and what's good, what's bad. Sometimes they may be a little bit misinformed, sensors may not be as accurate as they are, maybe a bit of scaremongering going on in some areas, but being able as a group of companies to develop a concept like multi-comfort, put it together using Saint-Gobain products and create an environment which is healthy to live in, is starting to become a major driver in the market, and understanding that health benefit, both the general public but also a lot of the governmental decision makers see the real benefit in that. Obviously from a government perspective, if we're promoting healthier living, people are generally healthier, it reduces the burden on the sort of health spend, the NHS in the UK, so there's a bigger picture to look at from where we are at the moment and how we develop that on. So we just nip into the office. So this is a little bit of a hub within the UK for Habitat, so it's not always full of people. There's one or two in today, but we can generally see around the general branding, looking at, as I mentioned, the audio, the visual, economic and thermal comfort. But there's a quite a few people in here today. Lee Lamley, he works most of the time with British Gypsum, but also works within the habitat environment to show that sort of a cross application between brand and delegation level to understand exactly how products can be integrated into a larger platform and offered in a scalable sort of full building application. Jamie over in the background hiding behind that monitor. She's formerly British Gypsum and come across to manage projects within the habitat environment. And over in the far corner, Vasilis. He's actually employed by Nottingham University. Another part of my role is working with academia and developing that academic approach. He's on a 3-year secondment looking at the development of a in situ test for measuring performances within the residential sector, so we can determine exactly how the combination of our materials works and prove at the end of the building process that it actually works in terms of a certificate and a test. So yeah, this is where it all happens. Doesn't look quite so busy today. But again, in the sort of offices, we sort of promote all the new comfort branding. So we have the Feel Thermal Comfort, the C, the new sort of corporate logos, all applied onto a magnetic plaster wall from British Gypsum, which again is one of those innovative approaches and products that can be integrated into a total global application, which is multi-comfort. So I hope that just gives you an insight into what I do every day, obviously working both nationally, internationally, working with research functions and smaller localised projects, development of systems and applications, and ultimately monitoring and proving the multi-comfort concept, and then relating that monitoring to what people actually perceive and feel in the built environment. Basically giving Saint-Gobain as a group of companies a single voice and a single solution. Again, apologies for all the technical issues. The competition, quick question for you. What was the name of the competition that Nottingham House was developed for? As I mentioned, it's one of the first things I was talking about down the corridor. It was designed and built by students for a specific competition, a European competition. Please put your answers forward, and apologise for the technical issues, but any questions that you've sent over, hopefully we will have answered by the time this is aired. If not, please send them in and we'll do our utmost to get them sent through. Thank you very much for your time.